Hi there, I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com, and I wanted to make a different kind of video today. If you've learned with me for a while, or especially if you're new, something I always make very important to students is that the words you know are important, but really how you think is even more important than that. And the reason is because often people will have lots of vocabulary. If you can understand the words I'm saying right now, you probably know quite a bit of English already. But if you're still watching this, it's because maybe you're either just trying to learn more or you really just feel quite nervous about speaking. So I wanted to make a video about this specifically because I get lots of emails from learners every day about specific problems they have, and most people, occasionally I'll get a mail from someone that says they need to learn more vocabulary or they need to know more of kind of the things that natives are actually talking about. But most of the mails I get from people are talking about the struggles that they have going on inside their mind. And so I wanted to talk about that in this video. So this is something I also struggled with when I was getting fluent in Japanese. And if you don't know my story already, I began learning languages when I was in elementary school. So I had to learn Latin in elementary school. I still think that's funny, but I failed at doing that. I failed to learn French in high school, Spanish in college, and then even when I was in Japan, I thought, wow, okay, I'm in a native country, I'm surrounded by Japanese speakers, I'm going to become a fluent speaker, but it didn't happen that way. So I can speak fluently now, but not because of me being in Japan. That was certainly helpful, but it wasn't necessary. But a lot of the things that changed for me for being finally fluent in Japanese happened internally, just the way I was thinking about learning languages. And so I want to talk about that today. So I often just go back and read even older emails that I get from students. I spend a lot of time thinking about this because it's really important just to understand students completely. Even as a language learner myself, I really want to understand the specific problems people have, and that helps me do my if I can't speak English, it helps me do my job better. So for thinking about this, I get mails, as I mentioned before, about people. In English, like kind of native English, we say we beat ourselves up. So you're kind of like hitting yourself. And a lot of people, they have, we call this self-talk. So it's the things that you say to yourself about what your progress is or what you think you might do in the future or who you are as a person. So if you think to yourself, well, I'm stupid, I can't express myself, I keep making all these different grammar mistakes. So it's usually there's the before self-talk. So these are the things that you'd say to yourself before a conversation. And then maybe you have the during self-talk. So when you're in a conversation, when you're speaking with someone, you might be trying to think and you're frustrated. Why can't I say this properly? You're supposed to be listening to the other person, but you can't stay out of your own head and you're beating yourself up about that. And then, so you've got some people that have the same self-talk after the conversation is finished. Got a really painful email from a guy a while ago, and he was talking about how he would be finishing with a conversation, and then after that, so the conversation was finished, he would still be, in his car an hour later, still thinking about the mistakes that he made. And so I want to talk about this very specifically and how to stop that, because it was really important to me as I was starting to get fluent in Japanese and thinking about how I can express myself. And I felt really nervous too, especially just being an adult. You're in a foreign country, and if you can't speak, you're really almost like a child. You're basically helpless, and you need someone there who either speaks the language and can translate for you or can teach you how to do something. But it's like being almost a child in an adult's body. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about that and how I have to be careful not to create that negative self-talk in my own mind. So I would try to think about things. If I made a mistake, I would try not to think about it so much at the time, but after the conversation was finished, I might think about something. I maybe used something incorrectly, or maybe I should have said some different word, but I wasn't so hard on myself about it. And the reason I didn't another great expression here is to fall into a trap. So I didn't fall into the trap of beating myself up so much because I would think about all the times that I have been successful at doing something. So when you're learning to do something new, especially if it's something difficult like learning a new language and you want to be able to express yourself fluently and confidently, you still have to think about, okay, I have to deal with these failures and I'm making lots of mistakes here, but I have had lots of success in other things I've done. So try to think about that, because usually what people do is they get into this self-talk, this negative self-talk, and they talk about certain mistakes they make and they say, well, I'm a bad speaker, or I'm stupid, or something like that, or why can't I get this right? Why am I? And they'll even get angry about thinking about getting angry. If that makes sense. So you're making mistakes, and then after the conversation, you're frustrated because you've made mistakes, and then you're frustrated because you're frustrated. So it can be really, really difficult and really, well, just frustrating for people. But if you stop and just think, there have been times, maybe even many times in your life where you've probably done something new and you've done it successfully. Maybe you already have a career and you're doing something very well. So I have learners who are doctors or lawyers or engineers or even presidents of companies learning with my lessons. And it's because everyone's still trying to learn and they want to get better. But they have obviously been successful, and so you can't say that they're not able to learn, because clearly they were. So they learned how to be an engineer or how to code software or how to write books or do something else like that. So I'm always really proud of my students and all the things that they've accomplished, but they're often getting stuck about language learning specifically because of this self-talk. So if you ever have that problem where you're thinking about, these are the things that, I made this mistake, or you're worried about how you might express yourself, something like that, I want you to remind yourself about the positive things that you have done so that you don't think you are stupid or you always will make a mistake, because there are plenty of times in your life where that's not true. So try to remind yourself of these things when you're in these situations and you just think, okay, like maybe I've made a mistake, but other times I've made mistakes and I've learned from those and I've gotten better. So remember these things as you go through in your conversations, and be careful of the self-talk because it's not true. And this is something, it's really important to remember, so I'm going to say it a few times here, but the not being true part is really important. Is it really true that you're not an intelligent person because you can't express yourself in English? And this is maybe someone who's a doctor or a lawyer, or it doesn't really matter. But if you're able to express yourself in your native language and you can talk and you can explain things well, really it's actually the education system and traditional language learning lessons that have made language learning difficult for people. It's what made language learning difficult for me. And as soon as I stopped learning that way, I started to become a good speaker. But part of that was me also reminding myself that I can do it. So I'm not stupid, even though sometimes I may say something stupid or make a mistake, something like that. That instance of making a mistake does not mean you're stupid. Now, this is, again, really important. That's why I keep repeating myself here. But I really want you to think about these things as you learn. The self-talk, and what's better, an actual better idea, is to project the kind of person that you want to be if you're going to have some kind of self-talk. So if you are having self-talk, you can have positive self-talk instead. So you might begin, even if you maybe don't think you're such a great speaker, you can visualize yourself actually having a conversation with someone. If you know you're going to be on the phone, or you have to communicate with somebody in a business or just casual situation, just takes time to calm yourself, just breathe a little bit, relax, and you can visualize that, and you can actually see in your mind, like you're having kind of a movie in your mind that you're watching that's showing you the positive you, that's something, that's actually going to happen. So the image that we create in our mind is the thing that we can make happen in reality. And I know this sounds a little bit funny for a language lesson, but the person that you are right now and the speaker you are right now is a result of how you were thinking in the past. So if you began or you have been thinking for a while that you can't express yourself, or you're having these troubles, or you've got certain mistakes or something like that, you're creating a much bigger problem in your mind, and that actually makes you create more nervousness and problems and causes more difficulty for you in conversations. So remember that the person you are now, even just as a speaker of English, is the person because of how you thought in the past. So who we are now, all the things that we do, the things that we think, they were created in our mind first, and now that we're using them in everyday conversations, or we see people and we try to express ourselves, if we are thinking that we're not going to do that well, then we will not do that well. But if we think we will do that well, we will have a good experience, even if something does not go right, we will still look at it and be positive about it, and we will continue to move forward. So that was really one of the things that made it possible for me to become a much more confident speaker of Japanese, not because I was just studying a whole bunch of words, but because I stopped, I kind of protected myself from the negative self-talk that a lot of people suffer from. So remember, this is all something that you can decide to do, and it's also in the same way that you can change how you learn. So you can learn with videos like mine here on YouTube or any other way. Basically, I tell people to learn like native English speakers if you want to speak like native English speakers. It's a really simple idea, and it's the same kind of thing that you would get if you, for example, you want to be a baker. You should go work with a baker. So learn the skills from that person, the actual professional who's doing that thing. And if you want to learn how to speak like a native, watch natives speak. It's pretty simple. So now that you're an adult, you don't have to sit in a classroom if you don't want to, and now you're free. So even though that conditioning, the ideas that maybe teachers put in your head, especially if you have some cultures, like here I am in Japan, where making mistakes is a really difficult thing for people to do. They're really stressed out about that. But for me, being an American, we have a little bit of a different culture where making mistakes is a little bit of a good thing. And often you will try something and the result might not be what you wanted, but maybe you discover something, you learn some new information that can help you as a result of that. So remember these ideas. I don't want to give you too much information, but really the most important thing is the person you are now, especially just as an English speaker, is the person you are because of how you thought in the past. So the ideas you had about how you are as a speaker, now that's how you think, and you start, again, creating these thoughts. So if you want to change that, if you have a lot of negative thinking right now and you're frustrated with yourself, if you're beating yourself up, if it's before a conversation, during a conversation, or after a conversation, remember to relax. It's not true that you're a bad speaker. You just had a bad experience about learning the traditional way, and you've got some conditioning that's telling you maybe that mistakes are really bad when these are just opportunities to learn. So I don't want you to just tell yourself not to be worried about that. It's more, you have to really have your mind believe it's true that you're not like a bad speaker or that you're stupid or something like that. So create that person in your mind, even just talking to yourself a little bit, or just even if you don't say anything, just visualize. So see it in your mind. You're having a conversation with me or somebody else. If you have to speak to a boss or someone on the phone, any situation like that where you can have a good conversation and visualize it in your mind, but just really relax. So imagine yourself being relaxed, feeling relaxed in that conversation. And even if you make a mistake, really, it's okay, because you're going to have a chance to learn something from that. Well, I don't want to give you too much information, but I know as I get more information from students, I've been doing this for many years now, and always the same few problems come up again and again. But usually your biggest problem is not going to be that you don't know enough words. I should stop using double negatives in my lessons here. But the most important thing is how you think. And if you think you're going to create problems in your speech and that mistakes are a really big deal when they're actually not that big of a deal, and they can actually teach you something about how to improve, then you're really going to feel a lot more confident about speaking. So take some time, visualize the person you want to be, the speaker you will want to be, and then slowly you will see your mind creating that reality for you. It really is a magical thing to see, and you can start doing that right now just by feeling more confident, taking some time, and trying to give yourself some positive self-talk instead of negative self-talk. Well, again, I'm Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com. If you'd like to learn more about what I do, we have the fluency course, and we have the visual guide to phrasal verbs. Lots of great programs you can learn. One in particular I'd like you to check out. That's the fluency course, and you can click on the link in the upper right of this video or on the link in the description below this video to learn more about that. This is where I not only teach you the actual words and phrases you should be using as an English learner to sound more like a native English speaker, but how to pronounce them, how to use grammar, and we give you lots of quick wins. So that means as soon as you join the program, you start improving right away. You start learning lots of impressive vocabulary, but we also have kind of a longer term strategy where we're actually changing the way you think in the program. So instead of having habits like getting to translate or think about things in your head or the self-talk that's stopping you from communicating, we get you feeling positive, excited to speak, and that's how you start building real fluency. So if you'd like to learn more about that, click on the link in the upper right. And if you'd like to just continue learning right here, please do these 3 simple things right now. 1. Click on this link to subscribe to my YouTube channel for over 500 free videos. 2. Click on this link to download my #1 ebook guide to fast fluency free. And 3. Click here to watch the most popular video on English fluency here on YouTube.